We spent 7 months working in Guatemala with San Lucas, which is a clinic and community outreach program. We were working in a really rural, indigenous community and doing public health interventions and evaluations there in the clinic. So I'm a midwife and public health specialist, and Sajan's a paediatrician. So we were using our skills, initially learning a lot from the community in the clinic there, and then seeing how we could help and support the development of the clinic through various activities like infection prevention and control.
It was after lots of prayer, and discussions that we'd had over the last few years. Where do we serve, and where are we feeling called to, and where's God telling us to go? And so after many discussions with Latalink and lots more prayer, we found San Lucas in Guatemala, this rural organization that has local leadership run by Guatemalans, kind of led by Guatemalans from over the last 20 years. And it's got such a sustainable model. And so we knew this is something that when we go in and have our input for the 7 months, it doesn't just finish there, and we don't create maybe a vacuum of care and projects and support. So there were opportunities for us to input that would continue on. But also Guatemala is a country where speaking English is less common significantly in the rural areas. And so this was a fantastic opportunity, especially with Latalink's liaison with the Spanish lessons in the local region, to build on our Spanish and undertake lessons there. So we worked with San Lucas with the whole team, from the directors, the managers, the on the shop floor team, to identify with them any current processes that they found really frustrating, areas for improvement, and we brought to the table suggestions from our experiences, having worked in healthcare systems and also in business and management as well. And together with that, we were able to leave after 7 months, but they have a collaborative document showing short-term development goals, long-term development plans for the clinic that has been led by them. And so that includes lots of feedback, lots of ideas, lots of suggestions, and that covers emergency kits, training, some education within paediatrics and children's work. And what we noticed across our time was the idea of feedback that we recognize in the medical field and also in other sectors. Giving feedback to colleagues or to businesses is a common thing that we know, for example, here in the UK. But around the world, feedback is quite a new concept, and it's something to be quite sensitive about, and has to be done in a much more culturally appropriate way before assuming that it's natural.
We also spent time with the team identifying needs and areas for development with on-the-ground staff. So in the local area, the rural areas, looking at the local midwives and the local health promoters, what their development needs were. That led to helping organise some of the safe midwifery practice workshops, cancer awareness workshops, safe birthing practices, as well as identifying needs with other local charities that worked with local traditional midwives as well. And so then we ran some newborn resuscitation training as well. It had a difference across kind of all aspects of life for us personally, for our faith, for our marriage, and also for sort of future focus as well. And specifically, personally, for us, we were learning a lot about slowing down, not going with the grain of the world of rushing around and being busy all the time. We really had an opportunity to practice Sabbath and also experience church in a completely different culture, worship and praying in Spanish, and kind of when everything is stripped away from what you're used to, your home group, your local church back home, how faith can grow and how you can learn so much about yourself, about the other person, about God, and also working continuously in a different culture. So kind of communication skills, negotiating and collaborating in Spanish was really hard, but something that we learned how to do while we were out there. And then with marriage as well, it was a real lesson in teamwork. We worked together for the first time. We spent a lot of time together and learning so much more about putting the other person first. What does the other person need in this environment where you don't have the friends and family and church around you that you might be used to? And yeah, that was what else.
And the other thing that kind of Stride had such a impact on was our ideas towards, could this be something in the future mission for us? And I think because Stride set itself up that we landed and we had a project, we had a community around us already with the Latin Link members. We weren't starting from scratch with a blank slate, and it meant we made the most of those 7 months to understand the more complete picture of what mission looks like, for us to then have a bit of more of an understanding by the end of the 7 months as to what it could look like in the future for us. While we're away with AMI San Lucas, the clinic that is managed by Cesar meant that we had lots of opportunities to collaborate and process our ideas. But we worked specifically with Cesar weekly, and he was someone that had such an unwavering desire to understand us. Whether that was because the ideas were really quite novel to the culture or because of language barriers. And he had a real keenness to grow and develop and see the clinic thrive and improve, which can be tough when we are outsiders and we're saying this needs changing maybe, or could you think about this? And the humility he showed and the faith in us as outsiders was fantastic. And I think what was wonderful was we'd seen the growth as we worked with him every week, and how it came to fruition and how it's coming to fruition still.
And I think another couple who really inspired us and challenged us in our own faith and journey as well were Israel and Henley, who are the founders and directors of AMI San Lucas. They are essentially missionaries in their own country. They're Guatemalans from the city, but over 20 years ago moved out to a very rural area where Israel was originally the only doctor in the area. And they have spent their lives serving the least in society, a community who is very marginalised, forgotten by the rest of the country in lots of different ways. And they've given up a sort of easier life in some ways in the capital city, with language differences, learning the local indigenous language. And it's been a real honour to see how they've worked individually, but also as a couple, and see their faith grow through this journey that God's taken them on. It's a brilliant opportunity, and you learn a lot and develop professionally as well. I think we would both suggest reflecting on why you want to do what you're doing and where specifically you're going to be serving in Latin America. Unless you're serving in a real crisis zone, spending your whole time just seeing patients, for example, may create a vacuum when you go and is not necessarily going to be helping with the long-term sustainability of a project. But reflecting on, is it an area that needs long-term development? How can you input in a different way potentially to how you work back in your home country? So whether that's education, whether that's strengthening the service and looking at service development with the team, and I guess just not underestimating your transferable skills. You will have so many ways that you can contribute, and that's not just direct patient care.
Yeah, as a paediatrician, for example, 10% of my time out there was probably seeing patients. And if you think about my time kind of serving at church, that probably goes down to 5%, because a lot of our work is in the sustainable build and development model. And then the reason that I think you've also got to reflect on is, do you want to kind of go alone, or do you want to be well supported by a charity that Latalink offers a service for, because you get a mentor. You're also kind of provided with the cross-cultural mission course. There are long-term members who are living in your local community, and what that offers is, whether those community members are medics or non-medics, is that the frustrations in that new culture will still be understood, and there are going to be people that have experienced what you've experienced, and normally the frustrations aren't medical or clinical, they're normally cultural, and so that can really help adjustment. And we only went for 7 months, and we recognize people go for 2, 3, 10 years, and those people are still having issues and frustrations, and so it's great to have community around you in that.
Thank you. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is how we're settling back into life in the UK, particularly church and how we can get involved in church and our work as well, and what we've learned overseas, how we can bring that back into our work and help our patients and population here back in the UK. And then I think another really important point for us is remembering to embed and keep those lessons that we learned while we were in Guatemala. So what God taught us about slowing down, Sabbath, prioritizing Him, cultural understanding, all of those things we don't want to lose, and realize that with the rush and the busyness of life back here, it can be so easy to get caught up in the next thing. And we really want to retain those lessons that we learned.
And another point would be, as we think about returning back to the UK, and we continue kind of embedding ourselves back into church and work, but how can we be missionaries here in the UK? How can we serve the local population? And then beyond that is thinking, is God calling us to global mission again? What does that look like? And praying for our ears to be open, our eyes to be clear to his doors that are open to us. And please pray for our obedience to his word.
Thank you.